In the heart of Renaissance Italy, where power and poison danced hand in hand, the Borgias reigned. Their court was a place of whispered alliances and vanished bodies where every sip of wine could be your last. This is that story. The air in the Vatican's grand hall was thick with whispers and the scent of incense. A flicker of candlelight danced across polished marble floors, casting shadows that shifted like secrets. A goblet sat untouched on a carved table, its wine still gleaming under the soft glow of lanterns. Footsteps echoed as figures moved through the chamber, their conversations mingling with the rustle of silk and velvet. The air was charged with tension, each breath carrying untold alliances and betrayals. The flickering torchlight cast elongated shadows across the cold stone walls of the Vatican's underground chambers. A narrow corridor echoed with footsteps, each step muffled by damp earth and time. At its end, a wooden door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room where the air was thick with the scent of old wood and decay. In the center stood an unmarked stone table, its surface marred only by the faint outline of what once lay there. The scent of wax and leather filled the narrow corridor as torches flickered along the walls. Shadows danced across dark wooden panels and tapestries depicting ancient battles. A soft whisper echoed from behind a half-open door at its end, where an oil lamp cast a faint glow over unmarked stone floors. Footsteps paused outside, their owners listening to the murmur of voices within, a dangerous exchange of secrets and poison. The heavy wooden door swung open with a low creak, revealing the opulent tapestries and dark wood of Cesare Borgia's private chamber. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood incense, mingling with the faint metallic tang of weapons. A flickering oil lamp cast long shadows across the room, illuminating the intricate carvings on a wooden cabinet where small vials lined the shelves, a collection of poisons and elixirs. Outside, the night was alive with distant whispers and the rustle of guards patrolling. The scent of ink and parchment filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of burning beeswax from a nearby candelabra. In the flickering light, shadows played across the walls of the Vatican scriptorium. A scribe bent over his desk, quill poised above a page of meticulous calligraphy. Outside, the night was alive with distant whispers and the soft tread of guards, constant reminders that this was no ordinary place. The silence was broken only by the scratching of ink on vellum, each stroke laden with hidden meanings. The grand hall hummed with hushed conversation as shadows pooled beneath ornate columns. An oil lamp flickered, casting light across cold stone and warming the edges of deep alcoves. A low murmur carried tales of alliances and betrayals, each voice a thread in the intricate tapestry of power. In one corner, a goblet sat untouched on a carved table, its wine gleaming under the soft glow, a silent sentinel to the unseen dangers that lurked within. The cold stone floor was damp underfoot, the echo of each step a stark reminder of the silence. In the dim light from an oil lamp, dust motes danced lazily in the air. A shadowy figure moved between ancient shelves crammed with scrolls and tomes, their fingers brushing over leather bindings. Outside, the night was heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth and distant thunder, ominous symphonies for a court where whispers carried more weight than words. The flickering light from an oil lamp cast long shadows across the room, dancing like spectres on the walls. In the center of the chamber sat a grand table, its surface laden with maps and documents. A figure in dark robes hunched over the papers, pen scratching out secret treaties and alliances. Outside, the night pressed against the stone walls, heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth and distant thunder, a symphony for a court where whispers carried more weight than words. The soft rustle of silk and velvet filled the chamber as figures moved in the shadows. An oil lamp flickered, its light barely reaching across the vast room. Heavy curtains framed a window through which the night sky peeked cold and indifferent. A tapestry hung on one wall, depicting scenes of ancient battles. In the center stood a grand fireplace, now dark and cold, silent witness to countless secret conversations and unseen betrayals. The scent of spices and incense lingered in the air, mingling with the stale aroma of old stone. In the dimly lit corridor, the faint glow from an oil lamp flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Footsteps echoed softly as figures moved through the darkness, their faces hidden by hooded robes. The distant sound of whispered conversation carried hints of betrayal and intrigue, each word a thread in the complex web of power that defined this place. The cold draught whispered through the narrow corridors, carrying with it the faint scent of candle wax and damp stone. Shadows clung to the walls as a figure in dark robes moved silently down the hall, their footsteps muffled by thick tapestries hanging from hooks. A low groan echoed from an open doorway, a sound that spoke of hidden suffering and silent screams. The oil lamp flickered, casting an uneasy light over the scene, revealing only enough to hint at what lay beyond. A low murmur filled the grand hall as figures in dark robes moved among the flickering torches. The air smelled of smoke and old stone, each step echoing softly on the cold floor. Tapestries depicting battles hung from the walls, their muted colours a stark contrast to the harsh light that danced across the room. In one corner stood a silent sentry, his posture rigid as he watched over unseen secrets. The distant toll of a bell echoed through the chambers, its sound mingling with the soft susurrus of hooded figures moving in the shadows. In the centre of the room, an oil lamp cast flickering light upon a grand tapestry depicting scenes of war and conquest. Shadows danced along the edges, hinting at unseen forms lurking just beyond the reach of the lamplight. The air was thick with the scent of wax from burning tapers and the heavy smell of aged stone, each breath carrying whispers of hidden treachery and silent oaths. The scent of citrus and myrrh filled the air, a sharp contrast to the musty stone walls. In one corner, a grand fireplace stood cold and silent, its mantel adorned with elaborate carvings that seemed to watch in the flickering light of an oil lamp. Shadows danced along the edges of the room as figures moved silently through the gloom, their hushed voices carrying tales of alliances and betrayals. The air was thick with tension, each breath heavy with the weight of unseen threats. The torchlight flickered, casting jagged shadows across the cold stone floor. Figures in dark robes moved silently through the room, their faces hidden beneath hoods. A tapestry hung behind them, depicting scenes of medieval warfare and political intrigue. The air was thick with the scent of wax from burning tapers and old stone. In one corner stood a silent sentry, his posture rigid as he watched over unseen secrets. Each whispered word carried tales of alliances and betrayals, each step echoing softly on the cold floor. If you're enjoying the story so far, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. We love hearing from our listeners. The air smelled of wet earth and distant rain as figures in dark cloaks moved through the echoing halls. A single oil lamp cast a weak glow, highlighting the worn tapestries that whispered tales of ancient battles. Shadows crept along the walls, hiding unseen forms and silent intentions. Each step echoed softly on the cold stone floor, each breath carrying the weight of hidden threats and secret pacts. In the grand hall, a soft susurrus of voices mingled with the crackle of torches. Figures in dark robes moved through shadows cast by flickering light, their faces hidden beneath hoods. Each step echoed softly on cold stone floors, while tapestries depicted tales of both glory and treachery. The air was thick with the scent of waxen old stone, each breath carrying whispers of unseen threats and secret pacts. The sound of dripping water echoed through the dimly lit chamber, punctuating the heavy silence. A lone figure in a hooded cloak stood near an ancient stone basin, its surface etched with intricate carvings that seemed to whisper secrets of old rites and dark magic. Shadows clung to every corner, their depths concealing unseen dangers. The air was thick with the scent of incense and damp earth, each breath laden with the weight of forbidden knowledge and hidden truths. The flickering glow of a single candle illuminated the cold stone walls. Shadows danced across the room as figures moved silently through the dim light, their hoods concealing faces and intentions. A heavy wooden table bore the weight of maps and parchments, each whispering secrets of alliances and betrayals. Outside, the night air carried the distant sound of a lone bell tolling, its echoes mingling with the scent of incense and old stone. The scent of pine resin from a flickering torch mingled with the musty air of the Vatican's secret corridors. Shadows danced along the walls as silent figures moved through the dim light, their hoods casting deep shadows over their faces. Each step on cold stone echoed softly, carrying the weight of unseen threats and hidden pacts. The distant sound of a whispered conversation lingered, hinting at the web of alliances and betrayals that shaped every breath in this place. The soft rustle of velvet skirts echoed through the dimly lit chamber as a figure moved silently towards a heavy wooden door. Shadows clung to every corner, their depths concealing unseen dangers. A single oil lamp flickered weakly on a nearby table, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Each breath carried the scent of old stone and incense, mingling with the faint aroma of wax from the tapers that lined the room's edges. The air was thick with secrets and silent pacts. The distant toll of a bell echoed through the Vatican's silent halls, its sound mingling with the crackle of torches. In the shadows, figures moved silently, their hoods casting long shadows on cold stone walls. A heavy wooden door creaked as it opened, revealing a chamber filled with maps and parchments that whispered secrets of alliances and betrayals. The air was thick with the scent of old wax and incense, each breath carrying unseen threats and hidden pacts. The crackle of a torch punctuated the heavy silence as shadows flickered across ancient stone. A hooded figure moved through the dim light, their steps echoing softly on cold marble. Each breath was laden with the scent of incense and damp earth, mingling with the faint aroma of wax from tapers lining the walls. On a nearby table, parchments whispered secrets of alliances and betrayals, each line a testament to hidden pacts. The night air carried distant whispers, hinting at unseen dangers that lurked in every shadow. The scent of aged leather filled the air as a hooded figure turned the pages of an ancient manuscript. Shadows clung to the edges of the room, their depths concealing unseen dangers. A single oil lamp flickered weakly on a nearby table, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Each breath carried the weight of secrets and silent pacts. Outside, the night air whispered through narrow alleys, carrying the distant sound of footsteps. The figures moved with purpose, their movements precise and deliberate. The soft rustle of silk skirts echoed through the chamber, a figure moving silently towards a heavy wooden door. Shadows clung to every corner, their depths concealing unseen dangers. A single oil lamp flickered weakly on a nearby table, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Each breath carried the scent of old stone and incense, mingling with the faint aroma of wax from tapers lining the room's edges. The air was thick with secrets and silent pacts. The distant sound of a lute drifted through the air, muffled by stone walls. In a dimly lit chamber, a hooded figure stood before an intricate tapestry, its threads a web of hidden meanings. Shadows danced across the room as a flickering torch cast light on ancient symbols etched into the stone. Each step echoed in the silence, carrying whispers of alliances and betrayals. The scent of damp earth and incense filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of wax from tapers lining the walls. The flickering light of a single candle illuminated the carved wooden table where a hooded figure sat, their reflection dancing across the surface. A goblet of wine rested beside them, its contents shimmering with an almost imperceptible sheen under the dim glow. Shadows played on the walls, casting long and ominous shapes that seemed to move on their own accord. The air was thick with the scent of incense and a faint hint of spice, mingling with the musty odor of old stone. Each breath felt like a silent prayer, invoking both protection and danger. The scent of aged parchment filled the air as a hooded figure moved through the dimly lit chamber. Shadows clung to every corner, their depths concealing unseen dangers. A single oil lamp flickered weakly on a nearby table, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Each breath carried the weight of secrets and silent pacts. The night air whispered through narrow alleys, carrying the distant sound of footsteps. On a nearby table, parchments rustled softly, their lines a testament to hidden alliances and betrayals. The cool stone floor pressed against bare feet as a hooded figure moved through the shadowy corridors. A faint whisper of incense lingered in the air, mingling with the damp earth smell from the walls. An oil lamp flickered at the end of the hall, casting long shadows that stretched and twisted like dark tendrils. Each step echoed softly, a silent warning of unseen dangers. The figure paused before a heavy wooden door, its surface etched with symbols of power and protection. Inside awaited secrets and perhaps betrayal. The heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing a chamber dimly lit by the glow of a single torch. Shadows danced across the walls as the hooded figure stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the silence. A long table dominated the center of the room, covered with maps and scrolls that hinted at secret alliances. The air was thick with the scent of incense and damp stone, mingling with the faint aroma of wax from tapers lining the edges. Each breath felt like a silent invocation of power and danger. The low murmur of voices faded into the shadows as a hooded figure approached an ornate wooden desk. A single candle flickered, casting long shadows across the room and onto the array of maps spread out before them. The air was thick with the scent of ink and parchment, mingling with the faint aroma of incense that lingered from recent rituals. Each breath seemed to carry secrets and whispers of impending betrayal. The figure paused, their hand hovering over a goblet filled with shimmering wine, considering the risk. The air was thick with the scent of wax and old stone as a hooded figure approached a heavy wooden table. Shadows danced across the surface, where maps and parchments lay scattered like secrets waiting to be unearthed. A single candle flickered weakly, casting long shadows that stretched across the room. Each breath felt like an invocation of hidden dangers and alliances. The figure paused, their hand hovering over a goblet filled with shimmering wine, considering the risk. The flickering candlelight cast jagged shadows across the hooded figure's face, barely illuminating the array of maps and parchments before them. The air was thick with the scent of ink and incense, mingling with the faint aroma of wax from the guttering flame. Each breath carried whispers of hidden dangers and alliances. The figure paused, their hand hovering over a goblet filled with shimmering wine, considering the risk as the shadows danced around them. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched on the table, its surface reflecting flickering shadows. The hooded figure's breath misted in the cold air as they studied the maps and parchments strewn across the desk. Each line, each mark, seemed to whisper tales of secret alliances and hidden dangers. A soft rustle echoed from a corner, drawing their gaze towards the shadows where figures moved silently, unseen but ever present. The scent of incense mingled with the faint tang of fear. A soft rustle echoed through the chamber as unseen figures moved in the shadows. The hooded figure stood by the heavy wooden table, their breath misting slightly in the cold air. Shadows danced across the maps and parchments strewn like secrets waiting to be unearthed. Each flicker of light from the single candle seemed to illuminate hidden dangers lurking just beyond sight. The figure's hand hovered over a goblet filled with shimmering wine, considering the risk as whispers of betrayal lingered in every shadow. The heavy wooden table creaked under the weight of hidden secrets. Shadows played across the maps, each line and curve a potential trap or ally. A single candle cast flickering light, its flame barely resisting the encroaching darkness. The hooded figure's breath came in shallow gasps, their hand trembling as it neared the goblet. The scent of incense clung to the air, mingling with the faint metallic tang of fear. Each shadow whispered of unseen dangers and betrayals. The scent of incense hung heavy in the air, mingling with the acrid tang of fear. A single candle flickered weakly on the table, casting shadows that writhed like living things across the maps and parchments. The hooded figure's hand trembled as it hovered over the goblet, the wine within shimmering dangerously under the dim light. Each breath felt cold against their skin, a reminder of the hidden dangers lurking in every shadow. Outside, the night was thick with secrets and silent movements. The hooded figure's eyes traced the lines of the map, each mark a potential betrayal or ally. The candlelight flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out from the corners like grasping hands. A faint whisper carried through the air, barely audible over the soft crackle of the flame. Outside, night enveloped the city, thick with silent movements and unseen eyes. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, a tempting but dangerous offering in the dim light. The flickering candlelight danced across the hooded figure's back as they leaned over the maps. Each line seemed to pulse with hidden meanings, alliances and betrayals waiting to be discovered. Shadows crept along the stone walls, merging into the darkness where unseen figures lurked. The scent of incense filled the room, mingling with the cold air that seeped through cracks in the ancient stonework. The goblet of shimmering wine remained untouched, a silent sentinel amidst the whispered dangers. The maps lay spread like secrets across the table, each line and curve a potential path to power or ruin. The hooded figure's breath was the only sound in the room, mingling with the faint crackle of the candle flame. Shadows pooled in the corners, deep and impenetrable. Outside, the night pressed against the windows, thick with silent movements and unseen eyes. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, a dangerous temptation under the dim light. The soft rustle of parchment filled the chamber as the figure's fingers traced delicate lines. Shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, each movement a silent promise of danger or salvation. Outside, the night was thick with whispers and unseen steps. Cold stone walls echoed the quiet crackle of flame, while incense smoke curled upwards like tendrils of secrecy. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, its surface reflecting the uncertain glow of the single candle. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the cold stone walls echoed the soft rustle of parchment. The hooded figure leaned closer, their breath misting in the chill night air as they examined a map marked with secret alliances and hidden betrayals. Shadows moved like silent sentinels around them, each flicker of candlelight casting new patterns on the ancient stonework. Outside, the city was a tapestry of unseen eyes and whispered movements. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, its surface reflecting the uncertain glow of the single flame. The hooded figure paused, breath visible in the chill air as they traced an alliance on the map. Shadows clung to corners like silent guards, and outside, the night was a thick curtain of whispers and unseen steps. Incense smoke curled upwards, mingling with the scent of aged parchment. The flickering candlelight danced across the stone floor, casting eerie patterns that shifted with every breath. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, its surface reflecting the uncertain glow of the flame. The hooded figure's hand hovered over the map, tracing an invisible line. Shadows from flickering candles danced across the room, casting shifting patterns on the cold stone walls. Outside, the night was thick with silent movements and unseen eyes, as if the city itself held its breath. Incense smoke curled upwards like wisps of secrecy, mingling with the scent of aged parchment. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, a silent sentinel under the uncertain glow of the flame. The soft rustle of the parchment was a whisper in the stillness. The hooded figure's breath misted in the chill air, each exhale a visible trace of their thoughts. Shadows pooled around them like silent watchers, and the flickering candlelight cast eerie patterns on the stone walls. Outside, the night was thick with unseen movements and whispered secrets. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, its surface reflecting the uncertain glow of the flame, a dangerous promise in the dim light. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows across the ancient stone floor, creating a dance of light and darkness. Outside, the city buzzed with unseen activity, the night air thick with whispers of betrayal and loyalty. The hooded figure's hand moved to the goblet, the wine shimmering like liquid silver under the uncertain glow. Each breath was a silent plea for caution or courage as they considered the map marked with secret alliances and hidden betrayals. The scent of incense hung heavy in the air, mingling with the musty aroma of old parchment. The hooded figure's hand hovered above the goblet, fingers trembling slightly as they considered the liquid within. Shadows played across the walls, each flicker a whisper of danger or opportunity. Outside, the city was alive with unseen movements and silent observers. Every step, every breath felt like a gamble in this court of shadows and secrets. The hooded figure's breaths were sharp in the cold room, each exhale a misty cloud. The shadows seemed to deepen with every passing moment, their edges sharpening against the flickering candlelight. Outside, the night was thick with silence, punctuated only by distant footsteps and muttered voices. The goblet of shimmering wine stood as a beacon of uncertainty on the table, its surface reflecting the dance of light and shadow. Each movement felt like a step into an abyss of unseen threats. The hooded figure's hand finally touched the goblet, chilling it slightly. The wine shimmered like liquid mercury under the candlelight, its surface reflecting the flickering flame in a dance of light and shadow. Each breath was sharp in the cold air, mingling with the scent of incense that hung heavy in the room. Shadows played across the walls, each shift a whisper of unseen threats. Outside, the night whispered secrets, the city alive with silent movements and unseen eyes. The soft glow of the candle danced across the hooded figure's hands as they traced the edges of the map. Each line and symbol spoke of hidden loyalties and darker secrets, a web spun in shadows. Outside, the night was thick with silence, save for distant whispers carried by the wind. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, its surface reflecting the uncertain light, a dangerous promise in the dim room. Shadows played across the walls like silent sentinels, each flicker a warning or an invitation. The map lay forgotten as the hooded figure's gaze drifted to the window, where the night sky stretched endlessly above. The air was thick with anticipation, each breath a mingling of incense and stale stone. Shadows clung to corners like silent observers, while outside, unseen figures moved through the city's darkened streets. The goblet of shimmering wine stood as a beacon of uncertainty, its surface reflecting the flickering candlelight in a dance of light and darkness. Each moment felt like an eternity, each shadow a potential enemy. The flickering candlelight cast deep shadows over the hooded figure's bowed head. Each breath was a sharp intake of stale air, mingled with the lingering scent of incense and aged stone. Outside, the night whispered secrets through darkened streets as unseen figures moved beneath the moonlit sky. The goblet of shimmering wine stood untouched, its surface reflecting the uncertain light, a dangerous promise in the dim room. Shadows played across the walls like silent sentinels, each flicker a warning or an invitation. The hooded figure's fingers traced the cold edge of the goblet, feeling the slight chill that seeped through the fine glass. Each breath was sharp in the stale air, mingling with the scent of incense and aged stone. Shadows clung to corners like silent observers, while outside, unseen figures moved beneath the moonlit sky. The wine shimmered like liquid mercury under the candlelight, its surface reflecting the uncertain flicker, a dangerous promise in the dim room. The hooded figure's breath misted in the cold air, each exhalation a ghostly wisp that mingled with the incense smoke curling from the censer. Shadows danced across the room as if alive, their edges sharp against the flickering candlelight. Outside, the city slept under a cloak of darkness, but the figure knew better. Hidden figures stirred in the night's embrace, watching and waiting. The goblet of shimmering wine stood as a silent sentinel, its surface reflecting the uncertain light like a mirror to hidden dangers. The hooded figure's hand trembled slightly as they lifted the goblet, the wine catching the candlelight like a promise of poison. Each sip was a gamble with fate, the cold glass against their lips sending shivers down their spine. The room smelled of incense and aged stone, while shadows danced on the walls like silent warnings. Outside, the city slumbered under the watchful gaze of unseen eyes. The figure knew every flicker of light held secrets, dangerous ones. The hooded figure's eyes traced the shadows cast by flickering candlelight, each movement a dance of light and dark across the room. The wine in the goblet shimmered like liquid mercury, its surface reflecting the uncertain light with an eerie glow. Outside, the city was still, but within the walls, danger lurked in every corner. Each sip from the goblet would be a step into the unknown, a gamble with fate under the watchful gaze of unseen eyes. The flickering candlelight cast eerie reflections off the goblet's surface, shimmering like hidden dangers. The hooded figure sat in silence, their breath barely stirring the air filled with incense and the musty scent of aged stone. Shadows danced across the walls, each movement a silent warning or promise. Outside, the city was still, but unseen figures lurked beneath the moonlit sky, watching and waiting. Every sip from the goblet would be a step into darkness, a gamble with fate. The air inside the chamber was thick with incense, the scent of myrrh and frankincense mingling with the musty odor of old stone. The hooded figure's hand hovered over the goblet, fingers tracing the cool glass. Shadows played across the walls, their edges sharp against the flickering candlelight. Outside, the city slept under a blanket of darkness, but within these walls, danger was a constant companion. Each sip from the goblet would be a silent dance with death, The cool stone floor beneath the hooded figure's feet was a constant reminder of the cold reality that surrounded them. Each shadow on the wall seemed to whisper secrets, their edges sharp against the flickering candlelight. The goblet of shimmering wine stood before them, its surface reflecting the uncertain light like a mirror to hidden dangers. Outside, the city slept under a cloak of darkness, but within these walls, danger was always present. Each sip from the goblet would be a silent dance with death. The hooded figure's fingers brushed against the rough texture of aged tapestries, hanging heavy with years of dust and shadows. Each thread told a silent story, woven into the fabric of the room. The goblet gleamed in the wavering light, its surface catching every flicker like a promise of doom. Outside, the city lay silent under the moon's cold gaze, but within these walls, whispers carried weight, and threats lurked around every corner. Each sip from the wine would be a step into the void. The hooded figure's hand hovered over the goblet, fingers trembling slightly in the flickering light. Shadows danced across the rough-hewn stone walls, their edges sharp against the uncertain glow of candles. Each sip from the goblet would be a silent dance with death, a gamble with fate under the watchful gaze of unseen eyes. Outside, the city was still, but within these walls, danger lurked in every corner, whispered in every shadow. The scent of aged wine and incense filled the chamber, a heady mix that hung heavy in the air. The hooded figure's eyes traced the shadows cast by flickering candles, each movement a silent sentinel. Outside, the city was shrouded in darkness, but within these walls, danger whispered from every corner. Each sip of the shimmering liquid would be a step into the abyss, an embrace of fate's cruel hand. The chamber's air hung thick with the scent of aged wine, mingling with the incense that swirled lazily from the censer. Shadows danced on the walls, their edges sharp against the flickering candlelight. The hooded figure stood silent, each breath a whisper in the stillness. Outside, the city was shrouded in darkness, but within these walls, danger lurked like a predator waiting to strike. Each sip from the goblet would be a gamble with fate, an act of defiance against the unseen threats that surrounded them. The shadows in the chamber seemed to deepen with each passing moment, their edges sharpening against the flickering light of the candles. The hooded figure's breath was a soft whisper, barely audible over the crackling flames. Each thread of the tapestry bore silent witness to the countless secrets whispered within these walls. The goblet, now nearly full, reflected the uncertain glow like a mirror to hidden dangers. Outside, the city slept under a cloak of darkness, but within these walls, danger was always present. The chamber's stone walls echoed with the soft drip of wax from candles, each drop a testament to time's relentless passage. The hooded figure's breath was a faint mist in the cool air, rising and dispersing like whispered secrets. Each thread of tapestry hinted at hidden alliances, their colours muted by years of shadow. Outside, the city slept under a cloak of darkness, but within these walls, danger was palpable, lurking in every flicker of candlelight. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows across the chamber, their edges sharp against the cold stone. A single drop of wine fell from the goblet's rim, its deep red a stark contrast to the muted tones of the room. Each candle was a sentinel, burning down with steady determination. The hooded figure stood motionless, eyes fixed on the goblet as if daring fate itself. Outside, the city slept, but within these walls, danger was ever present, a silent predator waiting for its moment. The chamber's air was thick with the scent of aged wine, mingling with the faint acrid tang of burning wax. Shadows danced across the tapestries, their edges sharpened by the flickering candlelight. The hooded figure stood motionless, a goblet clutched in trembling hands. Each sip promised peril, each drop a potential dagger. Outside, the city slept under a cloak of darkness, but within these walls, danger was ever present, a silent predator waiting to strike. As the shadows of night begin to lift, and the quiet whispers of the chamber fade into memory, you can breathe again. The dangers that lurked in those walls are now but stories told by candlelight. Sleep well, wherever you are. If this reached you tonight, subscribe and leave a comment. We read everyone.